In the dark, frigid depths of the Baltic Sea, a discovery was made that would ignite a global debate and spawn countless theories. In 2011, a team of Swedish oceanographers, the Ocean X team, were searching for a shipwreck. Using side-scan sonar, they mapped the seafloor, hoping to find treasures from a bygone era. Instead of a sunken galleon, their equipment painted a picture of something far stranger, something that didn't seem to belong. There on their screens was a massive, perfectly circular object, resting on the seabed nearly 300 feet below the surface. This discovery was the beginning of a modern mystery that continues to baffle scientists and capture the public's imagination. The Baltic Sea Anomaly. What did they find? A geological freak of nature, a long-lost piece of human history? Or, as some whisper, evidence of something not from this world at all? Today, we dive deep into the story of this enigmatic object. The initial sonar image was tantalizing. It showed a huge disc-shaped formation about 200 feet in diameter. It looked almost like a giant mushroom or a flattened dome rising from the ocean floor. But what made it truly bizarre were its features. The object appeared to have straight edges, clean lines, and right angles features, rarely found in natural rock formations. It looked almost designed. The main circular object also appeared to be resting on a pillar, and had what looked like a staircase leading up to an opening. Even more curious, about 650 feet away, a second, smaller, similarly shaped anomaly was detected. And trailing away from the main object was a long, scarred track on the seabed, stretching for nearly a mile. It looked as if this object had skidded or crashed into its final resting place. The Ocean X team, led by Peter Leinberg and Dennis Seisberg, knew they had stumbled upon something extraordinary. They raised funds for a return expedition, eager to get a closer look. What they found only deepened the mystery. As their remotely operated vehicle, or ROV, approached the anomaly, they reported that their electronic equipment began to fail. Satellite phones, cameras, and sonar systems all experienced strange interference when directly over the object. Once they moved away, the equipment started working again. This bizarre electronic blackout added a new layer of strangeness to the puzzle. Divers were sent down to investigate firsthand. They described the surface of the object as feeling like rough granite. It was dark, cracked, and covered in a layer of soot-like material. They managed to retrieve a few small samples for analysis. One of the divers, Stefan Hageburn, expressed his confusion, saying, "During my 20-year diving career, I have never seen anything like this. I can't explain what we saw. The object didn't seem to be a simple rock." The team reported seeing strange constructions, circular holes, and formations that seemed unnaturally symmetrical. The mystery was no longer just a strange shape on a sonar map. It was a tangible physical object that defied easy explanation. As news of the discovery spread, theories began to fly. The most grounded and scientifically accepted explanation is that the Baltic Sea Anomaly is a natural geological formation. Geologists, like Volker Brugert from Stockholm University, analyzed the samples brought back by the Ocean X team. His findings were straightforward. The samples were basalt and other common rocks, the kind you would expect to find in that region. He proposed that the entire formation is a post-glacial deposit. During the last ice age, massive glaciers would have scraped and moved across this landscape, carrying rocks and debris. As the ice melted, it could have dropped these materials in unusual formations. The disc shape, he argued, could be a type of glacial deposit known as a drumlin or a similar feature shaped by melting ice. The so-called runway could be a channel carved by meltwater. This theory is solid, supported by geological principles, and explains the composition of the rocks. For many scientists, this is the end of the story. Case closed. But for others, the natural explanation just doesn't quite fit all the pieces of the puzzle. The perfectly circular shape, the right angles, the alleged staircase, these features are hard to reconcile with the random nature of glacial deposits. And what about the electronic interference? Glacial rocks don't typically shut down satellite phones. This has led many to consider the possibility that the anomaly is man-made. One popular theory suggests it could be a relic from World War II. The Baltic Sea was a hotbed of naval activity, and it's littered with shipwrecks and military hardware. Some have proposed the object could be the base of a massive, secret Nazi anti-submarine weapon. Imagine a huge concrete and steel mesh structure designed to disrupt Allied submarine navigation and sonar. This could explain the strange shape and even the electronic interference. The problem with this theory is that there are no historical records of such a device ever being built or deployed, let alone one of this immense size. It remains a fascinating but unproven hypothesis. And then, of course, we enter the realm of the truly extraordinary. The moment the image of a massive circular crashed object appeared, one word was on everyone's lips: UFO. The shape of the anomaly is uncannily similar to the classic depiction of a flying saucer, specifically the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars, a comparison the discoverers themselves have made. The long scar on the seabed looks like a crash landing strip. The electronic interference could be the last vestiges of a dying power source from an alien craft. This theory, while by far the most sensational, captures the imagination like no other. Could the Baltic Sea hide a crashed extraterrestrial vehicle that has lain dormant for thousands of years? Proponents of the ancient astronaut theory point to this as potential evidence of alien visitation in our distant past. While there is absolutely no concrete evidence to support this idea, the rock samples are, after all, just rocks. It's a narrative that's hard to resist. The idea that we are not alone and that proof of it lies just beneath the waves is a powerful one. So where does that leave us? On one hand, we have the sober, scientific explanation of a glacial deposit. It's logical, it's supported by rock analysis, and it's the most likely answer. On the other hand, we have a collection of anomalies, the perfect shape, the strange features, the electronic interference that don't quite fit the natural explanation. The man-made theory is plausible but lacks historical evidence. The UFO theory is captivating but lacks any physical proof. The Ocean X team themselves remain open-minded but lean towards something unusual. They have consistently called for more funding and more research to get to the bottom of it. They believe that only a more thorough expedition, one that can perhaps drill into the core of the object, will provide a definitive answer. The truth is, for now, the Baltic Sea Anomaly remains an unsolved mystery. It's a Rorschach test on the seabed. What you see depends on what you're prepared to believe. Are you a pragmatist who sees a pile of rocks left by a glacier? Are you a historian who sees a lost piece of military technology? Or are you a dreamer who sees a crashed starship from a distant galaxy? Perhaps the beauty of the Baltic Sea Anomaly isn't in what it is, but in the questions it forces us to ask and the possibilities it allows us to imagine. It's a reminder that even in our modern, well-mapped world, there are still dark corners where mysteries lie waiting to be discovered. The story is far from over, and until the day that a team can definitively identify this strange object, it will continue to be a source of wonder, speculation, and endless debate. What do you think is lurking at the bottom of the Baltic Sea? A rock, a wreck, or a relic from another world? Deep beneath the cold, dark waters of the Baltic Sea lies a mystery that has baffled scientists and fired up the imaginations of millions. It's a story that begins in the summer of 2011, a tale of treasure hunters, strange technology failures, and an object so bizarre it was nicknamed the Millennium Falcon. So, what really is the Baltic Sea Anomaly? Is it a sunken UFO, a relic from a lost civilization, or just a very, very weird rock? Let's dive in and uncover the truth. Our story starts with a Swedish team of oceanographers and treasure hunters known as the Ocean X team. Led by Peter Leinberg and Dennis Seesberg, their mission was simple: scan the vast floor of the Baltic Sea in search of historic shipwrecks and valuable cargo. For years, they had successfully located sunken treasures, from 19th century schooners to long-lost champagne bottles worth a fortune. They were professionals, equipped with state-of-the-art side-scan sonar, a technology that paints a picture of the seabed using sound waves. On June 19, 2011, while surveying an area between Sweden and Finland, something extraordinary appeared on their monitors. It wasn't a shipwreck. It wasn't any known geological formation. It was a massive, perfectly circular object, nearly 60 meters, or about 200 feet in diameter. The sonar image was stunningly clear and utterly perplexing. The object had smooth, rounded sides, sharp edges, and features that looked almost artificial. There were straight lines and grid-like patterns, things you just don't expect to see in nature. And trailing behind it was a long, gouged-out track on the seabed, stretching for over 300 meters, as if this colossal object had skidded to a halt. The image was so shocking, so otherworldly, that the crew's minds immediately jumped to science fiction. It looked just like the iconic spaceship from Star Wars, the Millennium Falcon. The news exploded. The Baltic Sea Anomaly became an overnight global sensation. Media outlets, internet forums, and UFO enthusiasts were buzzing. Was this it? The definitive proof of extraterrestrial visitation? The sonar image was tantalizing. It showed what appeared to be a dome shape, stair-like structures, and even a small, circular hole near the top, almost like an airlock. The possibilities seemed endless. The Ocean X team knew they had to go back. A year later, in 2012, they mounted a second expedition, this time with divers and a remotely operated vehicle, or ROV, to get a closer look. What they found only deepened the mystery. As their boat positioned itself directly over the anomaly, their equipment started to fail. Satellite phones, cameras, and some of the ship's electronic systems would mysteriously cut out whenever they were in the immediate vicinity of the object. Once they moved a short distance away, everything would start working again. This bizarre electrical interference was reported by the divers as well. Stefan Hageburn, one of the professional divers on the team, described the experience as surreal. He said the object was huge, dark, and had a strange texture. The circular shape they saw on the sonar was confirmed. It rose about 3 to 4 meters from the seabed, like a giant mushroom of stone. The top was cracked, and a strange, black, soot-like material covered parts of it. Hageborn noted, "During my 20-year diving career, including 6,000 dives, I have never seen anything like this. Normally stones don't burn." This observation added fuel to the fire. Did the object crash land, burning as it entered the atmosphere? The initial theories ran wild. The most popular, of course, was the UFO theory. The object's symmetrical design, the apparent skid marks, and the electronic disturbances all pointed to something not of this world. Believers suggested it was a craft that had crash-landed thousands of years ago, perhaps during the last ice age, and had remained hidden under the ice and water ever since. Another compelling theory was that it was a secret anti-submarine weapon from the Cold War era. The Baltic Sea was a hotbed of military activity during that time, a strategic waterway for both NATO and the Soviet Union. Perhaps this was the base of a sophisticated listening device or a defensive structure, designed to ensnare enemy submarines. The grid-like patterns and strange materials could have been part of this advanced, and now forgotten military hardware. Its location right in the middle of a major shipping lane made this seem plausible. A third, more ancient possibility was that the anomaly was a man-made structure from a pre-Ice Age civilization. Some proposed it could be a megalithic temple or monument, similar to Stonehenge, built by a society that was wiped out and buried by advancing glaciers. The idea of a Baltic Atlantis was captivating, suggesting that the object was a remnant of a lost world, its secrets preserved in the icy depths. With the world watching, the pressure was on for a scientific explanation. The Ocean X team had managed to retrieve a few small samples from the anomaly during their dives. These fragments were sent to geologists for analysis, and this is where the story takes a sharp turn. Volker Bruckert, a geologist from Stockholm University, examined the samples. His findings were anticlimactic. The pieces were not made of any unknown metal or extraterrestrial alloy. They were basalt, a common volcanic rock, along with granites and gneisses. These are rocks that are very common in the Baltic region and are frequently transported by glaciers. This led to the leading scientific theory. The Baltic Sea Anomaly is a natural geological formation known as a glacial deposit. Specifically, geologists believe it is likely a type of drumlin. During the last ice age, massive glaciers scraped across the landscape, picking up rocks, soil, and debris. As these glaciers melted and retreated, they dropped their payload in mounds and ridges. Sometimes these deposits can form unusually shaped features. The anomaly is likely a massive chunk of rock that was dropped by a glacier and then shaped by the currents and pressures of the water over thousands of years. So what about all the strange details? The perfect circular shape? Geologists explain that while rare, nature can create remarkably symmetrical shapes. Think of spherical concretions or the hexagonal columns of the Giant's Causeway. The skid mark behind it could be a tail of sediment and smaller rocks that were deposited in the wake of the main rock as the glacier moved. It's a classic feature of glacial formations. And the electronic interference? This is trickier to explain. Some scientists suggest it could be due to concentrations of iron ore or other magnetic minerals within the rock formation, which could potentially interfere with sensitive electronic equipment. Others are more skeptical, suggesting the equipment failures were coincidental or perhaps exaggerated. It's important to remember that the ocean is a harsh environment, and equipment malfunctions are not uncommon. Without more rigorous, controlled testing, the claims of electronic interference remain anecdotal. What about the stairways and dome? Geologists argue this is a case of our brains seeing patterns where none exist, a phenomenon called pareidolia. It's the same reason we see faces in clouds, or a man in the moon. The low-resolution sonar images can be easily misinterpreted, and our human tendency to look for familiar shapes, especially when primed with the idea of a UFO, can lead us to see artificial structures in what are actually natural. Cracks and layers in the rock. The so-called soot could simply be dark mineral deposits or organic matter that has settled on the rock over millennia. So where does that leave us? On one hand, we have the scientific consensus. Geologists who have studied the evidence almost universally agree that the Baltic Sea Anomaly is a natural rock formation, a relic of the lost ice age. Its strange shape is a fluke of nature, and the other mysterious details can be explained by natural processes and human perception. But on the other hand, the mystery persists. The Ocean X team themselves are not fully convinced by the geological explanation. They maintain that what they saw and experienced down there was too strange to be just a rock. The sheer perfection of the circle, the reports of malfunctioning equipment, and the unusual appearance of the structure keep the debate alive. For many, the geological explanation just doesn't feel satisfying. It doesn't capture the sense of wonder and intrigue that the original discovery sparked. The Baltic Sea Anomaly has become a modern legend, a perfect storm of treasure hunting, advanced technology, and our collective fascination with the unknown. It's a story where science provides a logical, if somewhat mundane, answer, but the allure of a more fantastic explanation remains. It reminds us that even in our highly mapped and explored world, there are still places that hold deep secrets. The anomaly sits there today, nearly 90 meters below the surface, shrouded in darkness and cold water. It is a Rorschach test projected onto the seabed. Some see a glacial deposit, a testament to the immense power of nature. Others see a crashed spaceship, a forgotten weapon, or the last remnant of a lost civilization. Ultimately, without a much larger, more expensive, and more scientifically rigorous expedition to the site, one that could perhaps drill into the object or conduct more detailed scans, we may never know the definitive answer. The Baltic Sea Anomaly remains a captivating enigma, a perfect circle of mystery resting on the ocean floor. It serves as a powerful reminder that the deep sea is the last true frontier on Earth, and it's still full of wonders waiting to be discovered, whether they were left there by glaciers or by visitors from the stars. What if I told you that deep beneath the dark, cold waters of the Baltic Sea lies a mystery that has baffled scientists, explorers, and conspiracy theorists for over a decade? This isn't the plot of a science fiction movie. It's a real-life enigma known as the Baltic Sea Anomaly. Our story begins in the summer of 2011. A team of Swedish oceanographers, the Ocean X team, led by Peter Lindberg and Dennis Seisberg, were on a routine expedition. They were using sonar equipment to scan the seabed for sunken treasures, maybe an old shipwreck or historical artifacts. For days, the sonar display showed nothing but the familiar undulating floor of the sea. But then, on June 19th, something completely unexpected appeared on their screens. There, at a depth of nearly 300 feet, was a massive, perfectly circular object. It was something they had never seen before. The team was stunned. The sonar image was crystal clear, showing a shape that simply didn't belong. It was a perfect circle, about 60 meters or 200 feet in diameter. To put that into perspective, that's roughly the width of a jumbo jet from wingtip to wingtip. It wasn't just a flat disk either. The object had thickness, rising about 10 to 13 feet from the seabed, giving it a distinct, almost mushroom-like or saucer-like appearance. As they continued their scan, the discovery became even stranger. Trailing behind this massive circular object was what looked like a long, straight track or runway, stretching for an incredible 400 meters, or about 1,300 feet. It was as if this thing had skidded across the ocean floor before coming to a stop. The initial sonar images were so bizarre, so out of place, that the team knew they had stumbled upon something significant. But what was it? The news of the discovery quickly spread like wildfire across the internet. The images went viral, and speculation ran rampant. Was it a natural rock formation? A sunken piece of a forgotten civilization? Or something else entirely? The world wanted answers, and the Ocean X team was determined to get them. A year later, in 2012, they mounted a follow-up expedition. This time they weren't just relying on sonar. They were sending divers down to see this anomaly with their own eyes. What the divers found only deepened the mystery. The object was indeed real. It was a colossal stone-like structure. They described its surface as being rough, almost like granite, but with strange, perfectly straight lines and sharp, right angles carved into it, which seemed incredibly unnatural for a rock formation. There were also small circular holes that looked almost like portholes. One of the divers, Stefan Hageburn, described it as feeling completely man-made, yet ancient. He even said the object appeared to be covered in a layer of soot or something that had been burned. But the weirdest part of the expedition, the part that truly pushed this story into the realm of high strangeness, was a bizarre phenomenon that occurred every time they got close to the object. The team reported that as their ship positioned itself directly over the anomaly, all of their electronic equipment would suddenly and inexplicably fail. We're talking everything. Their satellite phones, their GPS, some of their camera equipment, and even the sonar they were using to map the object. The moment they sailed away, moving just 200 meters from the site, everything would flicker back to life, working perfectly again. They tested it multiple times. They'd sail over the spot and boom, electronic blackout. Sail away and everything was fine. This electronic interference field was a complete mystery. What could possibly be generating a localized field strong enough to disrupt modern, sophisticated electronics from nearly 300 feet below the surface? This is where the theories really start to take off. The scientific community, naturally, approached the anomaly with a healthy dose of skepticism. The most common explanation from geologists is that it's simply a glacial deposit. During the last ice age, massive glaciers would have scraped across the region, picking up and dropping rocks of all shapes and sizes. They argue that the circular shape could be a coincidence, a type of rock formation known as a glacial erratic, or perhaps a pillow basalt formation. As for the runway, they suggest it could be a natural channel carved by glacial meltwater or ocean currents. The electronic failures? Skeptics attribute that to faulty equipment, confirmation bias, or simple technical glitches that can happen at sea. They point out that the Ocean X team are untrained geologists and might be misinterpreting what they are seeing. Samples of the rock were brought to the surface. An analysis by a Stockholm University geologist, Volker Bruckert, concluded that the samples were just ordinary rock, specifically basalt and other stones common to the region. No metals, no exotic materials. But that explanation doesn't sit right with everyone, especially not the Ocean X team. They argue that the shape is too perfect, the angles are too precise, and the electrical interference is too consistent to be a simple coincidence of nature. This opens the door to more speculative and far more exciting theories. One of the most popular theories, especially in the early days, was that the anomaly could be a secret Nazi anti-submarine weapon from World War II. The Baltic Sea was a critical theater of war, and it's known that the Germans were experimenting with all sorts of advanced and sometimes bizarre technology. The theory suggests this could be a massive concrete and wire mesh structure designed to disrupt Allied submarine navigation and sonar. It's an intriguing idea, and it would explain the seemingly man-made structure and potentially even the electronic interference. However, there are no historical records or declassified documents to support the existence of such a device, making it pure speculation. And then, of course, there's the theory that captures everyone's imagination, the UFO. The shape of the object, a near-perfect saucer, immediately drew comparisons to the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. The skid marks behind it could be evidence of a crash landing. The electronic interference could be the result of a still active, or partially active, alien power source deep within the craft. Could this be a genuine extraterrestrial vehicle that crashed into the Baltic Sea thousands or even millions of years ago and has been lying dormant ever since? Proponents of this theory point to the unnatural features, the soot-like covering suggesting a fiery entry or crash, and the mysterious energy field as compelling evidence that this is something not of this world. It's a wild idea, but in the absence of a definitive explanation, it remains a tantalizing possibility that keeps people talking. So where does that leave us today? More than a decade after its discovery, the Baltic Sea Anomaly remains an unsolved puzzle. The Ocean X team has been trying to fund another, more extensive expedition to the site for years. They want to drill into the object to see what's inside, but these deep-sea operations are incredibly expensive and difficult to organize. Without conclusive proof, major scientific institutions are hesitant to invest the resources needed for a full-scale investigation. So for now, the anomaly sits in the dark, silent depths of the Baltic Sea, holding its secrets close. Is it a mundane piece of rock shaped by the random forces of an ancient glacier? Is it a lost relic of a forgotten war, a testament to human ingenuity and conflict? Or is it something far more extraordinary, proof that we are not alone in the universe? The truth is, we simply don't know. The Baltic Sea Anomaly is a perfect modern mystery, a blank canvas onto which we can project our greatest fears and our wildest dreams. It represents the unknown, the idea that even in our highly mapped, well-explored world, there are still places that hide profound secrets, waiting to be discovered. It's a reminder that the ocean is vast and deep, and we have only scratched the surface of what lies beneath. What you're looking at is a sonar image from the bottom of the Baltic Sea, 90 meters below the waves. It shows a massive circular object, almost 70 meters wide, with strange features that look almost man-made. It's been called the Baltic Sea Anomaly. Ever since its discovery, it's sparked a whirlwind of speculation. Is this the wreckage of a UFO, a piece of forgotten ancient technology, a secret wartime device, or simply an elaborate trick of nature? Today, we're diving deep to unravel one of the ocean's most compelling modern mysteries. What exactly is lurking in the dark, cold waters of the Baltic? Let's find out. The story begins in the summer of 2011. A Swedish-based team of ocean explorers and treasure hunters called Ocean X were scanning the seabed between Sweden and Finland. They were looking for old shipwrecks, maybe some sunken cargo from centuries past, something they had done many times before. But on this particular day, their sonar equipment picked up something completely unexpected. There on their screens was a perfectly circular shape. It was huge, about the size of a jumbo jet, and seemed to be resting on a pillar. It had straight lines, rigid angles, and what looked like a long runway or trench leading up to it, stretching for about 300 meters. The team was stunned. In their years of scanning the ocean floor, they had never seen anything like it. The initial sonar images were so intriguing that they immediately captured the public's imagination. People quickly pointed out its uncanny resemblance to the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. It wasn't just a vague blob. It had distinct features. There were what appeared to be stairways, ramps, and other symmetrical structures. The object seemed to have a tail or track behind it, suggesting it might have skidded or crashed into its current position. The sheer scale and weird geometry of the object made a natural explanation seem unlikely to many. Was this evidence of something extraordinary? The Ocean X team, led by Peter Leinberg and Dennis C. Esberg, knew they had to go back. A year later, they mounted a new expedition, this time with divers and a remotely operated vehicle, or ROV, to get a closer look. This is where the story gets even stranger. As their ship positioned itself directly over the anomaly, weird things started to happen. The crew reported that their electrical equipment began to fail. Satellite phones cut out. Some of their cameras stopped working. The moment they sailed away from the spot, everything went back to normal. When they returned, the malfunctions started again. This bizarre electronic interference added a thick layer of mystery and fueled the most sensational theories. Could the object be emitting some kind of energy field? This idea launched the theory that has captivated so many, that the Baltic Sea Anomaly is an alien spacecraft. Proponents of this idea suggest that the object's shape, the apparent crash site, and the electronic disturbances are all classic signs of extraterrestrial technology. Artists' renderings flooded the internet, depicting a sleek, futuristic craft half buried in the seabed. Had a UFO crashed into the Baltic Sea thousands of years ago and remained hidden until now? The Ocean X team themselves seemed open to this possibility, with team member Stefan Hageborn remarking that in his 20 years as a professional diver, he had never seen anything like it. The object looked constructed, with rounded sides and rough edges. It seemed almost like a mushroom, with the main circular body sitting atop a thick pillar. But the alien theory wasn't the only one making waves. The Baltic Sea was a critical theater of war, and it's known that the Germans were experimenting with advanced technology. Could this be the base of a massive anti-submarine weapon designed to disrupt Allied shipping? The location is plausible, and the idea of a lost piece of advanced military hardware is certainly compelling. It taps into the enduring fascination with secret Nazi projects and wonder weapons. Taking a step even further back in time, another theory suggests the anomaly is a remnant of a pre-Ice Age civilization, a structure built by a long-lost culture before glaciers covered the region. Proponents of this idea point to its seemingly artificial construction and wonder if it could be a temple, a monument, or part of an ancient city, like a Baltic Atlantis. According to this hypothesis, the structure was built when sea levels were much lower and was subsequently submerged and then covered by glaciers during the last ice age. The long trench leading to it could be an ancient road or causeway. This theory is exciting because it hints at a chapter of human history that we know nothing about, a civilization lost to time and ice. With all these incredible theories swirling, the scientific community decided to weigh in. Geologists were naturally skeptical of the more fantastical explanations. They proposed a much more down-to-earth solution. The leading scientific explanation is that the Baltic Sea Anomaly is nothing more than a natural rock formation, specifically a glacial deposit. During the last ice age, massive sheets of ice moved across this region. These glaciers acted like giant bulldozers, scraping up rocks, sediment, and debris, and then depositing them in new locations as the ice melted and retreated. This process can create all sorts of unusual geological formations. Geologists suggest the anomaly is a type of formation known as a glacial erratic or a drumlin. It's just essentially a large rock or pile of rocks that was transported by a glacier and dropped onto the seabed, which is composed of different material. The circular shape, while unusual, isn't impossible in nature. Think of how water and ice can sculpt stone over thousands of years. The runway could simply be a tunnel valley, a feature carved out by meltwater flowing under the pressure of the glacier. The animations of these glacial movements show how powerful and transformative these natural forces can be. To support this theory, scientists pointed to the samples that were eventually collected from the object. Volker Bruckert, a professor of geology at Stockholm University, analyzed samples brought back by the Ocean X team. He found that the pieces were mostly common types of rock, like basalt and other volcanic rocks. These are not materials you'd expect to find in an alien spaceship or a man-made structure. They are, however, exactly what you would expect to find in a glacial deposit in that region. He concluded that the entire formation was a product of glacial and post-glacial processes. To a geologist, he said it was a completely mundane rock. The electronic failures were also explained away as likely being simple equipment malfunctions, coincidences, or interference from natural mineral deposits on the seafloor, which are known to affect instruments. So, case closed, right? It's just a rock. Well, not quite. This is where the story hits a contradiction that keeps the debate alive and kicking. While some scientists, like Professor Bruckert, dismissed the samples as ordinary, the Ocean X team tells a different story. They sent their own samples to a lab in Israel for analysis. According to their reports, these samples contain metals like limonite and goethite. More importantly, they claim these materials were metals that could not have been formed naturally in that environment. This claim directly contradicts the findings of other geologists and suggests that the object is, in fact, artificial. This conflict of information is at the heart of the ongoing mystery. On one hand, you have a solid, logical, scientific explanation grounded in well-understood geological processes. On the other, you have first-hand accounts of strange phenomena and conflicting sample analyses that hint at something far more extraordinary. Critics of the Ocean X team suggest they may have exaggerated their findings to maintain public interest and secure funding for future expeditions. After all, mysterious UFO is a much better headline than interesting rock. Supporters of the team argue that the scientific community was too quick to dismiss their findings without conducting a more thorough, independent investigation on site. The fact remains that no major scientific or government body has ever mounted a full-scale expedition to definitively identify the object. And so, the Baltic Sea Anomaly remains suspended between scientific fact and tantalizing fiction. The deep, dark, and murky waters of the Baltic continue to hold their secret. It's a place where visibility is poor and exploration is difficult and expensive. Without clear images or more universally accepted sample data, the object's true nature is left to our imagination. What we are left with is a fascinating modern myth. It's a story that perfectly encapsulates our desire to believe in the unknown, to find magic in a world that can sometimes feel overly explained. The scientific explanation that it's a glacial deposit is the most likely answer. It's the most rational, and it fits with what we know about our planet's history. And yet, there's that little part of us that wants it to be something more. The idea of a sunken spaceship or a lost city is just too compelling to let go of completely. The conflicting reports and unanswered questions provide just enough room for doubt to flourish. Ultimately, the Baltic Sea Anomaly serves as a powerful reminder that our planet is still full of mysteries. There are vast parts of our own oceans that we have yet to explore. While science points us toward a natural origin, the strange circular shape on the sonar screen will forever be an invitation to wonder. Deep beneath the cold, dark waters of the Baltic Sea lies a mystery that has baffled scientists and captured the imaginations of millions. In 2011, a team of Swedish oceanographers, the Ocean X team, were using sonar to map the seabed for potential shipwrecked treasures. What they found instead was something far stranger, something that defied easy explanation. The sonar images revealed a massive, perfectly circular object, nearly 200 feet in diameter, resting on the ocean floor. It had strange features that looked almost artificial, like ramps, stairs, and other geometric structures. The discovery immediately went viral, sparking a global debate. What was this thing? The object became known as the Baltic Sea Anomaly, and the mystery was just beginning. The initial images were so striking, so otherworldly that speculation ran wild. For many, the object bore an uncanny resemblance to a famous fictional spacecraft, the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. The comparison was unavoidable, and soon, theories of an alien origin flooded the internet. Could this be a crashed UFO, an extraterrestrial vessel that had lain hidden for thousands of years? The idea was electrifying. The team members themselves added fuel to the fire. They reported that as their ship passed directly over the anomaly, their electronic equipment, including satellite phones and cameras, mysteriously malfunctioned, only to start working again once they moved away. This detail was tantalizing. Was some unknown energy source emanating from the object, interfering with their gear? The UFO theory was just the beginning. Other ideas, equally fantastic, began to emerge. Some suggested the anomaly was a remnant of a long-lost ancient civilization, perhaps an Atlantis-like city submerged by rising sea levels. The structure's seemingly artificial design, with its straight lines and right angles, didn't look like anything nature would typically produce. Could it be a temple, a monument, or part of a much larger complex buried beneath the sediment? This theory painted a picture of a forgotten chapter in human history, hidden deep beneath the waves. Then came the darker, more conspiratorial theories. Given the Baltic Sea's history as a critical theater of war, some speculated that the anomaly was a top-secret Nazi weapon from World War II. The idea was that it might be the base of an anti-submarine device or some kind of experimental craft. Lost to time after the fall of the Third Reich, the Baltic is littered with the ghosts of war, from sunken U-boats to unexploded ordnance. It wasn't entirely implausible that a secret military project could have ended up on the seabed. Each theory was more captivating than the last, turning the anomaly into a modern legend. The world watched, waited, and wondered, eager for answers. With the mystery deepening and public interest at a fever pitch, the scientific community began to weigh in. The wild speculation was exciting, but what did the actual evidence say? Geologists were skeptical of the more sensational claims. In a follow-up expedition, the Ocean X team managed to retrieve small samples from the surface of the object. These samples were crucial. They were sent to laboratories for analysis, and the results would either confirm the extraordinary claims or offer a more mundane explanation. The moment of truth was approaching. The world held its breath. Were we about to find definitive proof of aliens, ancient civilizations, or secret weapons? The lab results came in, and they were surprising, but not in the way many had hoped. The analysis revealed that the rock samples were nothing out of the ordinary for the region. They were mostly pieces of granite, gneiss, and sandstone. There were no exotic metals, no unidentifiable alloys, no materials that would suggest an extraterrestrial or advanced technological origin. Instead, the rocks were entirely consistent with what you would expect to find on the floor of the Baltic Sea. One geologist, Volker Bruckert from Stockholm University, who analyzed the samples, stated that he was 100% sure the object was a natural rock formation. This scientific verdict was a bucket of cold water on the fiery speculation. So if it wasn't a UFO or a lost city, what was it? The leading scientific theory points to a geological formation known as a glacial deposit, or more specifically, a drumlin. During the last ice age, massive glaciers carved their way across northern Europe. As these immense sheets of ice moved, they dragged along rocks, sediment, and debris. When the glaciers eventually melted and retreated, they dropped these materials, sometimes forming distinct and unusual shapes on the landscape. The Baltic Sea Anomaly, according to this theory, is simply a large, unusually shaped rock deposit left behind by a melting glacier thousands of years ago. It's a trick of geology, a glacial error that just happens to have a remarkably symmetrical and intriguing shape. This explanation accounts for the rock composition and the location. The odd features that looked like stairs or ramps could be the result of fractures and erosion over millennia. But what about the malfunctioning electronics reported by the Ocean X team? Scientists suggest this could be explained by natural mineral deposits in the area that create magnetic or electrical field variations. Or it could simply have been an equipment glitch, a coincidence magnified by the excitement of the discovery. While less thrilling than a crashed spaceship, the glacial deposit theory is supported by the physical evidence gathered at the site. It's a logical, scientific answer to a seemingly otherworldly puzzle. And yet, the mystery doesn't feel entirely closed. The scientific consensus points firmly towards a natural formation, a fluke of the Ice Age, but for many that answer feels incomplete. The sonar images are just so strange, so suggestive of something more. The stories of malfunctioning equipment, the perfect circular shape, the sheer scale of it, all these elements keep the flame of mystery alive. The Ocean X team themselves have remained open-minded, acknowledging the scientific findings but also highlighting the remaining unanswered questions and the sheer strangeness of their discovery. In the end, the Baltic Sea Anomaly is a perfect example of how our world can still surprise us. It's a story where the lines between science, myth, and human imagination blur. While the evidence points to a natural cause, the anomaly remains a captivating what if. What if the science is missing something? What if there's more to the story, still buried under layers of sand and silt? Perhaps the truth is that we want to believe in mysteries. We want to believe that there are still wonders to be discovered in the unexplored corners of our own planet. The anomaly has become a modern Rorschach test on the seabed. What you see in its shadowy sonar outline says as much about you as it does about the object itself. Today, the anomaly rests in the quiet darkness, just as it has for thousands of years. It's a geological oddity that became a global phenomenon. Whether it's a simple rock or something more, it has sparked curiosity and debate, reminding us that there is still so much we don't know about the world beneath the waves. As we look one last time at that ghostly sonar image, the question hangs in the water, unanswered and endlessly fascinating. What really is down there? Thank you for joining us on this deep-sea detective story. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more explorations of the world's greatest mysteries.